You're about to meet the most repulsive and hated character in all of Red Dead 2. Today, I'm going to show you every possible encounter with Sonny, that crazy guy who lives alone in a cabin out in the Lagras swamp. But more than that, we'll break down every single item inside his cabin and reveal the hidden story behind this NPC. And I'll tell you right now, it's not just a disturbing story, it's a downright bizarre one. Because inside that cabin, among tranquilizers, chains, suspicious bottles, and even an abandoned tricycle, there's a newspaper clipping that could be the ultimate proof that Sonny, just like Francis Sinclair, is a time traveler. But this is just the beginning, as I'm also going to test absolutely every possibility involving this character. From what happens if we try to take him to the Saint-Denis police, to what goes down if we decide to follow him around the map for hours to see if he has some hidden destination. I also dug through the game's internal files. We uncovered secret lines and animations of Sonny that Rockstar cut out, entire dialogues that don't show up in any normal gameplay, and as if that wasn't enough, I got in touch with the actor who played Sonny, Jonathan Spivey, to try to dig up some behind-the-scenes trivia, but what happened between us ended up revealing a pretty uncomfortable moral similarity between the actor and his character in the game. Throughout this video, you'll understand exactly why Sonny is a hidden freak lurking in the swamp, and I'll answer without leaving any loose ends the question in the title: who the hell is this man, and why is he one of the most disturbing characters Rockstar has ever created? So get comfortable and get ready to dive headfirst into this investigation, because right off the bat, in the very first encounter with him, one of the most grotesque and unsettling scenes in the entire game goes down. But back to the video. Lagras Swamp is one of the calmest, most charming, and welcoming spots in all of Lemoyne, and the cabin located here on the map near the little church is the perfect example of that. As we get closer, the owner of the place greets us in a really friendly way.
What you doing here? You looking for a friend? I'll be your friend, if you let me. Folks don't normally want to be my friend.
Okay.
So, you hungry, huh? I got food. I got food inside. Come along.
As you could see, the guy is super friendly and invites Arthur in to grab a bite. A pretty weird invite considering who the hell calls a total stranger into their own house. But you know how it goes. When the charity's too good, even the saint gets suspicious, and once we accept the invite, that saying proves true real quick.
What you thinking, partner? Now come here. Don't you hate old Sonny now? Don't hate him. What? Oh, you struggled. And you lost. But it was quite a tussle, I tell you. Quite a tussle, my pet. See? Friendship ain't so tough. And neither is you.
What?
As expected, Arthur takes a nasty hit to the head and is left out in the middle of nowhere, right in the Bayou NWA swamp. But there's a curious detail. Unlike what happens with the Aberdeens, Arthur doesn't lose all the stolen money, just a measly $1, and even stranger, he wakes up with his boots completely worn out. What is he doing? And even stranger, he wakes up with his boots completely worn out, which also doesn't happen with the brothers. That left a lot of people puzzled. After all, what exactly caused Arthur to wake up like that? The answer shows up if you pay attention to what Sonny says after the hit. The jerk keeps talking to Arthur, asking him not to hate him and saying there was a fight, but Arthur lost, even though it was a hell of a battle. But the real trick is in the final dialogue. Most people end up ignoring it because it's not subtitled. There, Sonny says that friendships aren't that hard, just like Arthur. This line refers back to what he says earlier on the porch, that nobody wants to be his friend. And that's when the pieces start coming together, because Arthur was literally raped by this guy. That's right, this bastard lives in the swamp, luring victims to his cabin, like the Aberdeens, for example. The difference is that Sonny doesn't steal money, he steals something else: anal virginity. This encounter always gave me a weird insight about Red Dead 2. It's the game where Arthur can't have sex, but he can be the one getting screwed. A huge nod to Brokeback Mountain, only without consent. Now that we know what went down, it's time for the long-awaited sweet revenge. To do that, just head back to Sonny's cabin. It's just a few steps from the tree where he left Arthur. The tricky part is that unlike the Aberdeens, he spots us coming from afar and messes everything up by running inside and locking the door.
Not you again!
This is a mistake you won't live to regret.
With the door locked, we've got two options. Either we use a gas bomb or we follow Sonny's own example, kicking the door down and breaking the lock. Inside, finally, it's time for the long-awaited revenge. And like you could see, Sonny's macho act disappeared the moment Arthur stepped in, which reveals the true nature of a Jack, a coward and unscrupulous. The most common thing here is to kill Sonny, but of course there are several ways to deal with him, and I'm gonna show them all in this video, in the part where I reveal every possibility for this encounter. But before that, since we're inside the cabin, I'm gonna take the chance to show you some really interesting stuff I found around here. That could, believe it or not, be simply a time traveler. There are clues supporting this theory. Also, looking at the cabin's very structure, I found several curiosities that reveal more about who this Sonny guy really is. So let's start from the beginning. Once inside the cabin, we find a completely messy place. There's clutter everywhere, several dirty utensils scattered on the floor, the sink and other corners, along with a bunch of items that reveal more about Sonny's past and methods. The first thing that caught my attention was the bed. After all, that's where Arthur suffered the biggest betrayal of his life, surpassing even the one Dutch pulled on him at the Cornwall factory. Besides being all dirty and messed up, what stands out the most are the chains. Two of them are screwed into the wall, one at the foot and the other at the head of the bed, acting as devices Sonny used to trap his victims and enjoy a moist cake in peace. That explains how he managed to overpower Arthur so easily. The cowboy was tied up. Another disturbing detail is a rope hanging from the ceiling. It doesn't reach the floor anymore as it seems to have been cut. But it caught my eye because it might reveal yet another one of Sonny's cruel methods. Maybe he also hanged his victims. Since I'm talking about the rope, the house also has an attic, but it's inaccessible because the stairs are blocked by objects. However, using the free camera mod, we can explore the place, finding some scattered boxes along with crayfish traps. But the creepiest part is on the other side, where there's a bathtub and a tricycle. Yeah, a tricycle, and that really freaked me out because it could suggest that Sonny has already abused minors, keeping the tricycle as some kind of trophy. And things only get worse when we head back to the first floor, where you can also find a rag doll sitting on top of one of the cabinets. Jesus Christ, I don't even want to think about that. Next to the doll's cabinet, there's the cabin's fireplace, and right above it, there's a pretty peculiar skull. At first glance, it looks human, but that idea falls apart the moment you notice the canines. They're pretty big, which suggests it belongs to some kind of primate. This indicates that Sonny is also a hunter, especially if you add that to the wolf skin in the kitchen, the fishing rod, and the fish cleaning bench on the porch. Since Sonny doesn't work, he survives off the animals hunted around the area. And since I mentioned the kitchen, it holds a very important item for this investigation. On the shelf above the sink, we find a bottle of tranquilizer recommended for treating rheumatism and cholera. The catch is that the product is also meant for animals, which points to a strong sedative effect. And that might explain why Arthur seems so dazed during his talk with Sonny, besides explaining why he wakes up groggy and with such low energy. This is an item that many overlook, but it reveals a lot about the character's methods, and I found that pretty interesting. Besides the tranquilizer, and an insane amount of this other one here, a toothache tonic, it shows up in large quantities, both inside the cabin and on the front and back porches. I couldn't figure out why so many of these tooth tonics. Considering Sonny's teeth are all yellow and broken, he definitely doesn't use them for health reasons, but then I remembered that in the 19th century, it was very common for these products to contain alcohol, opium, cocaine, or morphine. So a likely theory is that Sonny used these tonics to feed his addictions, and that adds up to the fact that there are several bottles of whiskey and beer scattered around the rooms, so there you have a pretty solid theory. Heading back to the bed. Around it are the most intriguing items from all of Sonny's cabin. The newspapers stuck on the wall. There are several of them, and during the investigation for this video I looked at each one individually, trying to figure out what they were about. At first I thought they were similar to the ones in Edmund Loren Jr.'s cabin, where the maniac kept clippings about his missing victims, but that wasn't really the case. When I zoomed in with the camera, I found that most of them weren't even readable. The only things you could make out were a few scattered headlines, which didn't say much either, except for one specific newspaper that stands out in the whole place, because this one actually has clear and understandable headlines. I'm talking about this one here. It has the title Commander of the 1st Brigade Helps Helicopter Victims. It also mentions a chapel in Dong Tan, which was a military base of the notorious 9th Infantry Division of the United States during the Vietnam War. When you read that, you might think, cool, Sonny is a war veteran. At first glance, I thought the same. But the problem is, the Vietnam War happened between 1955 and 1975, roughly 86 years after Red Dead 2's timeline. That leads to two theories. The first is that Sonny, just like Francis Sinclair, is a time traveler who carries these newspapers as mementos of his past. His war history would explain his grotesque appearance, his twisted behaviors, and even the traumas he seems to carry. The second theory is a bit more grounded. Rockstar might have simply used actual textures from old newspapers available in databases and inserted them into the game just to build the setting. This is pretty common in game development, and it could explain why there's an article about an event that happened more than 8 decades after the main story. One detail that supports this idea is another newspaper stuck there dated 1862 called the Derby Gazette, a newspaper that really existed in England. But now I want to hear your opinion. Do you think Sonny is a time traveler, or did someone at Rockstar drop the ball and not check the newspaper's content? Drop your theory in the comments because I'm really curious to see what you'll say. But don't leave the video yet, because now the moment everyone's been waiting for has arrived, all the possibilities. So if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and hit that like to support the channel. Alright. To start, I tested the possibility that probably everyone has already tried. I went there, had both encounters, and took out Sonny. Then, after a few days, I went back to the cabin to see if anything had changed. My hope was that something similar to what happened with the Aberdeens would occur, since when we return to the pig farm after the encounters, we find out the whole house has been ransacked. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen with Sonny. The cabin stays exactly as he left it, completely untouched. Well, who would want to steal junk from a place like that anyway? Taking advantage of the fact I was testing this, despite the possibilities with the Aberdeens, I thought about what would happen if I visited the spot where Sonny dumped Arthur before any encounters. I did this because there's that secret possibility with Tammy where we get an extra dialogue if we take her to the grave. But unlike Aberdeen, the place where Sonny throws us, it's not a pit full of corpses, it's just a random spot out in the swamp. Even so, I decided to test it. I went there, walked around a bit, and to my surprise, he wasn't there. I was puzzled because that was the first time that happened, but after a few days, I came back and there he was. And the whole encounter played out normally, so it doesn't change anything. What happened to me was probably just a bug. Another thing I tested was sparing Sonny in the second encounter, and I admit, it was hard not to blast that bastard. But to resist the urge, I just didn't bust down the door and left. The first day I came back, he didn't show up. Then I thought the encounter had been cancelled, but since I always test everything thoroughly here on the channel, I waited a few more days and then I returned, and to my surprise, there he was. The curious thing is that here, in this kind of scenario, the encounter jumps straight to the second stage. He always runs inside the cabin and hides, which was expected. One more thing I decided to try was taking Sonny to the police in St. Denis. I grabbed Arthur so he actually committed a crime. Then I went back for the second meeting and tied him up. Then I put the bastard on my horse and rode straight to the sheriff's office, but like I already feared, everything went downhill the moment a pedestrian saw me. Right away the game marked me as wanted for kidnapping. The game just ignores the fact that the guy's a criminal and slaps a bounty on Arthur's head. That's why Red Dead 2 didn't win the 2018 Game of the Year award, but if it helps, the police landed a fatal shot on Sonny, so even unintentionally, they ended up doing their job. But one possibility I tested was following Sonny to see if he goes somewhere specific. I made it to the second encounter. I busted down the door and aimed my gun, and like always, he took off running. I followed him for several minutes on several different occasions, but the pattern is always the same. He runs in a random direction, aimlessly, forever. As long as Arthur is nearby, he'll keep running without a destination. Something different only happens when we activate the free camera mod and leave Arthur behind. That's when he eventually steps into an unrendered area and falls into the abyss. And still, within the secret possibilities, there's a pretty curious and funny dialogue. That can happen at the camp. If we've gone through the first encounter with Sonny, after that there's a good chance we'll be approached. By Bill Williamson at the camp, he makes a comment that clearly annoys Arthur.
I met an interesting feller in the swamp. Real interesting.
Did you?
Sure. He seemed to know all about you. I mean, all about you.
Get out of here.
As you could see, Bill somehow talked to Sonny, and the guy told his side of the story with Arthur. What makes this dialogue even weirder is knowing that Bill is a closeted gay man. like I already explained in his story video, so it's quite possible that Marion pays consensual visits to the swamp to have his seal constantly broken. And to top it all off, I decided to test what would happen if I left as soon as Sonny opened the door for the first time. I also did this inspired by the Aberdeens, since there you can refuse the drink and come back days later, finding the couple in a completely different situation. And to my happiness, I discovered this triggers some alternate dialogues. Every time we get to the cabin, Sonny invites the player in, using food as an excuse. But if we refuse and come back another day, he changes his approach and uses other reasons to try to convince the player to come inside. We put together a compilation with all these alternate dialogues.
Hello again. Don't be shy now. Come over to see old Sonny. Come on. I said hello. Welcome. Ain't this a fine place? An interesting place. The best of places, huh? Is it land or is it water? Can't make up his mind. No, sirree. I can't make up my mind about things neither.
And, how are you doing?
You want to come in, see my collection of skulls? What you stood there for? Hello there, mister. Hello.
Heard Ken around here had a habit of marrying.
Ain't you a sight for sore eyes? You want to come inside, friend? Come on, mister. I won't bite. Not much. You standing there like a long streak of something wet. Well, it's frightening me. I won't lie. You are frightening me. Now come on up or get lost. What you looking at, friend? What you looking at?
Partner?
Well, ain't this a treat? You just gonna stand there? Or you gonna come inside and give old Sonny a cuddle? Come on! Come on inside! Don't hang around and do nothing nor say nothing. It's peculiar. I used to do that, and I am peculiar. Folks always say so. Hello there, mister. Hello.
Howdy, mister.
So how you diddling? I know you ain't shy. Let's go party. Oh, you ain't sure about Sonny, are you?
Now that we've seen all the alternate dialogues, it's time to dive deep into the game files to uncover what Rockstar hid about Sonny. We created a script that allowed me to play all the animations Rockstar made for Sonny, including every single line of dialogue. In total, there are 89 files, and I picked out the ones really worth showing you. Amidst this mountain of content, 3 things caught my attention. The first is this alternate dialogue where Sonny invites Arthur inside the cabin, and this dialogue never showed up organically in my game.
You want to come inside again?
What, as you could hear, Sonny calls Arthur to come back into the cabin again. That made me wonder, was it originally possible to visit him more than once? Man, that's really weird, because I keep imagining in what situation Arthur would actually accept that invite again. The second thing that caught my attention was a dialogue from the second stage. Every time we return on the second meeting, Sonny locks himself in the cabin and starts yelling insults at Arthur. But while digging through the files, I found this one here.
The thing is, I'm getting married. I am. This is the last you'll see of me.
It was beautiful, but I'm leaving.
As we saw, Sonny says he's getting married. Obviously it's a joke, so nothing too special here, but it's a line of dialogue that doesn't usually appear in the game, and I thought it was pretty funny. Finally, I noticed that several animations are fully done, and with the actor having performed the entire motion capture for the scene. But for some reason, these scenes don't have any dialogue. In other words, it's quite possible that Rockstar cut a lot of this content from these encounters, leaving only the silent animations. With the files dissected, I decided to look for Sonny's model in Rampage. I found him under the name Swamp Weirdo Sonny. Translated, it would be something like Sonny the Swamp Weirdo. Rockstar made it pretty clear what they think of him right in the title. The guy is seriously weird. Inside the clothing tab, the character has 3 variations. The first is the default outfit we see him wearing in 1899, nothing special there. The second is a custom outfit used during the epilogue with John, and finally there's a second version of the original outfit. The curious thing is that in this model the outfit looks bigger, like Sonny got fatter or the clothes are way too loose. It's either that or Rockstar just left a defective model behind. So unless someone from the dev team decides to speak up, all we can do is speculate. That's why I reached out to Sonny's actor, Jonathan Spivey, over on his official Instagram profile. I slid into his DMs inviting him to be part of this video, answering some questions about his role in shaping the character. The main reason was to show him all the game's dialogues and ask if there was anything he recorded that ended up cut from the final version. My goal was exactly to dig up some behind the scenes tidbits to share with you guys, while also giving props to the actor's work. At first, Jonathan replied saying he thought the idea was cool, but asked if there would be any kind of compensation for participating in the video. I found the question a bit odd, especially since, come on, it's an interview, not a paid gig. I politely told him there wouldn't be any payment, but that all his social media or anything else he wanted to promote would be featured in the video. The whole idea was to honor his work, bringing to life such an iconic character. But as soon as he found out there was no money involved, he just stopped replying. He kept reading my messages and leaving me on that beautiful scene bubble. I admit it made me a bit sad, because I really wanted to bring some behind the scenes trivia for you guys, but unfortunately life imitated art, and it seems that just like Sonny, the actor who played him also has a pretty low honor. So all I could do was take out my frustration on Sonny himself, killing him in the most creative ways I could think of. The first one was throwing the maniac to the crocodiles. It's a pretty cheesy and predictable move, but it never loses its charm. The second one was throwing him off the tallest building in Saint Denis, and I have to admit, I found that one pretty fun.
Oh my God.
And finally, we can't forget the most classic death of them all in the Western, getting run over by a train. Now tell me, what did you think about the actor's attitude? Do you think he's worth the fee to give an interview? Drop your take in the comments and let's discuss. And if you're into videos like this that dive deep into all the possibilities of Red Dead 2, I've got some recommendations that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. In a video here on the channel, we show all the possibilities of the Aberdeen family, one of the darkest, creepiest, and most complex events in the whole game. There, I break down every detail, every secret, and reveal a bizarre fate about the couple's parents that almost nobody knows. If you're into this kind of investigative content, click the yellow arrow and uncover all these dark secrets of that family. Big hugs and see you soon, bye.